This Thanksgiving I shot a short animation with my nephew, making a short Star Wars brick film using the animation PWA from a previous project. After shooting the clips of 2 short scenes, which took maybe an hour, next came assembling the animation, plus some very basic compositing and special effects. I kept it super basic, only using GIMP and MS Paint for effects. There's some charm in low-tech special effects, and doing as many practical effects as possible. After shooting all the animation clips, the next steps were getting the frames into a good final sequence, adding basic compositing and special effects, optionally performing frame interpolation using Flowframes, in this case taking the footage from 12 frames per second to 24 frames per second, and adding titles and making a final render to a good format for distribution. I like using VP9 encoded WebM video. For getting frames into a good final sequence, I loaded all the video clips into Kdenlive and got them into a good order. One of the clips was shot out of order, and there were a couple of takes on a couple of clips, so that needed to be addressed. Once I had the order I wanted, I saved all the frames as a PNG image sequence in Kdenlive so that I could do frame-by-frame effects. After the frame sequence was rendered, I opened the clip sequence with VirtualDub, which I prefer for doing frame-by-frame fine-tuning. VirtualDub makes stepping through individual frames of video very easy, as well as deleting single frames with the delete key, or a series of frames using Home and N to select in and out points, then pressing the delete key to delete them. I needed to delete some frames that were duplicates and some mistakenly shot frames. Once that was all cleaned up decently, I was ready for basic compositing. The ship landing effect was achieved by holding the ship and lowering it down, taking frames as it was lowered, making sure to hold the ship from the back so it wasn't obscured. After that, arm and hand would be cut out, and that frame pasted over a static shot of the scene without the ship. That worked, though it revealed the issue with using a camera that forces automatic image settings like exposure, white balance, and gain. I needed to blend the edges of the cutouts. I started by using GIMP's heal feature, though in the end, a Gaussian blur worked out better. This is where having a camera that can at least lock down image settings like exposure, white balance, and gain would have been good for more advanced stop-motion animation, though having better light control also would have been a good idea. This was shot by a window, and even though it was an overcast day, uncontrollable variations in lighting aren't good for stop-motion animation and will lead to flickering. Though we're just having fun here, so we won't sweat these imperfections. Plus it adds some charm. Next came doing the laser and explosion effects. For those I used MS Paint. I'm not a fan of newer versions of MS Paint, though some of the brushes that are present in newer versions can be handy for drawing explosions and smoke. The oil brush seems decent for drawing flames, and the crayon seems good for drawing smoke. Smudging the crayon in GIMP would have been a nice additional graphic touch, but I didn't want to spend a ton more time on that. The basic compositing and drawing effects took the most time in this mini project. All visual post-processing took about 3 hours. Once I had the animation just about all set, I figured it would be neat to see what it looks like frame interpolated to 24 frames per second. Flowframes, paired with a supported graphics card, can be used to frame interpolate to 24 frames per second to fake being shot on the ones. Though in doing that, you'll be adding some artifacting, and you'll need to delete junk frames between scenes. Some prefer the choppier shot on the twos look, and others might like the smoother faked look of shot on the ones. You can also just shoot on the ones, but then you're doubling the frames you need to be taking, and adjust your flow accordingly. Finally, adding a quick title and end graphic was desired. I just did that using Kdenlive using a handwritten font I created. The video was then rendered as a VP9 encoded WebM video. Here I have both the original 12 frames per second version without titles and the fake 24 frames per second version with titles. That takes care of the visuals. A whole additional treatment is audio mixing, which I won't be tackling in this video, but I might revisit later.